Hey people, hope you guys doing great. In today's video we will see, what if Naruto Reborn as half angel and half demon, part 1. Huge shout out to Da-Deranged-Dude for this story. If you end up liking this video please consider subscribe, and like the video, so let's start the story. Prologue, of Angels and Demons. Two blades collided with a loud clang, again and again. The force with which they struck would easily break bone. Their edges were so sharp they could literally cut through solid steel. The speed they moved in was practically invisible to the average human eye. They curved gracefully into deadly arcs, seemingly cutting the wind around them. One of the blades was a kodachi, a sword of Japanese origin. It was shorter than a katana, but every bit as deadly. It sacrificed sturdiness and power for speed and momentum. It was a very suitable weapon for a shinobi. The other blade was a chikuto, another Japanese sword. The chikuto was designed to be held reverse, the dull side of the blade pressing lightly against the wielder's forearm. It acted more like an extendable bladed arm guard than a sword. It was very mobile and the preferred weapon for shinobi as well. What was more remarkable were the two beings wielding the blades. They stood atop a large waterfall that was flanked by two enormous stone statues. The waterfall fell into a deep canyon and ran down a river that led into an impossibly large valley. The Valley of the End, fitting. Many battles that altered the course of this world were fought in and around this valley. It seemed another was about to take place. One of the beings, the one with the kodachi, growled as he blurred forward, seemingly intent on slicing the other in half. The other figure stood his ground, unsurprised by the kodachi wielder's speed. He quickly raised his right and blocked the kodachi with his chikuto. The chikuto wielder hissed in the other being's face. Dark flame-like marks spread from the chikuto wielder's neck. It spread up his neck and all over his body. The mark lightened to a grayish hue as they spread and covered the man's body. The back of the man's shirt ripped open as grotesque hand-like wings erupted from his shoulder blades. Twin ivory horns grew from above his temples and curved upwards. To finish the picture, a thin, snake-like tail burst out the back of his pants. A sharp, curved blade extended from the end of his tail, giving it a similar appearance of a scorpion's tail. A sickly purple aura surrounded him. The kodachi wielder growled at his opponent's transformation. A mix of silver, blue, and red energy suddenly flowed out of his pores. The red energy gathered especially behind the man's waist and on top of his head. The silver energy did the same for the kodachi wielder's shoulder blades and in an area above his head. Then the energy solidified. The red energy turned into a white-tipped red tail and a pair of crimson fox ears. The silver turned into a pair of pure white feathery wings and a shining gold halo. Dobe, the chikuto-wielding man whispered. His eyes flared blood red, three comma-shaped marks rotating around his pupil. Team, the kodachi wielder whispered back. His own cerulean eyes began to glow as his pupil became slitted. A head bearing silver gravity-defying hair leapt through the trees along with a small dog. He grunted as he rushed towards the Valley of the End as fast as he could. The man needed to stop them, before they ended up killing each other. Why is it that the ones I create bonds with always end up in trouble? The man thought solemnly. They've all died. My teammates, my sensei. I will not let my students die as well. He renewed his resolve to stop them and sped on through the trees. The small canine tried his best to keep up with his master. He sniffed the air. We're close. Good, the man replied. He raised the hitate that covered his left eye, revealing a powerful Manjikyu Sharingan. Hold on, Naruto, hold on, Sasuke. I'm coming. The being with feathered wings and a fox tail blocked a slash by his opponent, and countered with a thrust to his opponent's heart. The chikuto wielder swiftly brought his hand-like wing in front of him. The kodachi thrust deep into the flesh of the wing. It wouldn't budge no matter how much the young man pulled. Kukukuku. The horned man chuckled from behind his crude, but effective defense. Big mistake, Naruto. Naruto shouted out as the wings slammed into him, sending him flying upwards. The blonde-haired man quickly spread his own wings and hung in the air, glaring at his adversary. The man chuckled yet again as he looked at the tip of the kodachi penetrating through to the inside of his wing. He grabbed the blade, ignoring the fact that the edge cut his hand, and pulled it, hilt and all, through his wing. The hole in the wing and the cuts in his palm quickly sealed. He smirked as he bit the blade of the kodachi. The sword suddenly cracked and broke in half from the force of the horned man's bite. The Chikuta wielder spit out the bits of steel in his mouth and threw the remains of the kodachi into the river. The blonde growled as he watched his beloved weapon go over the waterfall. "Sasuke, you bastard!" Sasuke's smirk grew wider. He sheathed his chikuto and gripped the wrist of his left hand. Dark-colored lightning expanded from the uchiha's palm. Curious flapping and chirping noises emanated from the lightning. Naruto scowled. He held out his own hand and his silver, red, and blue energies swirled into it. They mixed as they began to mold a softball-sized orb in the blonde's hand. The end result was a ball of pure white energy. "Hakudabetsu Chidori," Sasuke rasped. He had poured in almost all of his remaining energy into this attack. The cursed man flapped his disfigured handwings and rose to Naruto's level. "Hate Shiganai Rasengan," Naruto said, desperately trying to stay conscious. The enormous amount of strain on his body caused by maintaining the white orb was ungodly. They flapped their wings for one final time, shooting towards each other. The silver-haired man, Kakashi, had reached them as the two attacks collided. However, the resulting shockwave of energy blew him back into the forest. "No, I'm too late," he thought before blacking out. His canine companion poofed away, returning to the summoning plane. The energy manifested itself into a large sphere that spanned for miles. Then it imploded upon itself and there was nothing but black. 12-year-old Naruto awoke with a gasp. He sighed in relief. It was just a dream. Suddenly Shikamaru, Kiba, and Chuji barged into his apartment, each having a frantic look adorned on their faces. Naruto raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Naruto! Sasuke has defected from the village!" Shikamaru exclaimed. The blonde Jinchuriki's eyes widened. "Nanny! Let's go!" the blonde said as he quickly changed into his orange jumpsuit. It was afternoon, nearing sunset. Sakura and several others, civilian and shinobi alike, stood at the village gates, awaiting the return of the last member of the Sasuke retrieval team. Shikamaru, Kiba, Niji, Lee and Chuji were all brought back safely by the Sand siblings. They were now at the hospital, treating their wounds. The other members of the Konoha 11 were at the gates, waiting for Naruto and Kakashi. A figure appeared in the distance. The pink-haired girl could barely make out silver hair. Sakura grinned widely as she rushed forward to meet her sensei and Naruto, who had hopefully brought Sasuke back with them. The crowd at the gates followed her lead and ran towards them as well. As soon as she got close to them, she stopped grinning. Kakashi was walking slowly, his head looking down at the body he was carrying bridal style in his arms. She gasped. Naruto was in her sensei's arms, a deep bloody hole in his chest. The crowd stopped in their tracks as soon as they all saw the two shinobi. Kakashi had stopped moving as well. He looked up at them, tears falling from his only visible eye. A pregnant silence hung for a full 5 minutes. Then it was broken by Sakura's terrified scream. The pink-haired girl fell to her knees, her eyes wide with shock and her tear glands pumping out liquid. A big-chested woman pushed her way to the front of the group. "Kakashi. Mission report," Tsunade slowly said. She desperately held back her tears. As much as the Gondai wanted to cry, she could not break down in front of her village. The slug Sannin knew that she had to be a role model. She had to show that Konoha was strong, physically and emotionally. But this was especially hard, for this young boy was like her surrogate brother. The silver-haired man slowly nodded. "Hi, Hokage-sama. I found Naruto and Sasuke at the Valley of the End." As Sasuke had used Chidori to pierce straight through Naruto's heart. And Naruto was dead and Sasuke had escaped by the time I got down the cliff walls. "I'm sorry I didn't go after Sasuke, Hokage-sama. I felt that bringing Naruto home was more important." It's alright, Kakashi," Tsunade replied, taking the blonde from Kakashi's arms. She allowed a few tears to fall onto his face. "Naruto." "Haha! The demon is dead!" a random villager cheered. Sakura stood up suddenly, her hair shadowing her eyes. She appeared in front of the villager and slammed the sole of her sandal into the man's crotch. A sickening crunch was heard as he cried out with searing pain. It was quite obvious to anyone that his pelvis was broken as well as his reproductive organs. He fell to the ground, twitching. She raised her head. The villagers were shocked at the massive amount killer intent she was radiating. They were also frightened by her eyes. Her eyes held fury, bloodlust, sadness, and most of all, confusion. How could you? He tried to bring back Sasuke-kun for us, and this is how you repay him. Cheer when he's dead, she cried. Tears continued to flow from her green orbs. What is wrong with you? No one in the group dared to answer. Huh! Sakura shouted, her eyes glowing with anger. Again, she heard no response. The pink-haired girl sobbed as she ran back towards the village. The crowd parted for her, mostly because of fear, not sympathy. Naruto was a good comrade, a good teammate, a good friend, Sakura said as she read her notes in front of a small group of people in the cemetery. Sure, he was goofy and acted like an idiot at times, but he had his good traits. He was gentle, caring, and would do anything to make his friends happy. If you can hear me out there, Naruto, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for berating you and rejecting you so much. In truth, it was your unrelenting love for me that kept me going in the terrible world of shinobi, not my love for Sasuke. It was your constant encouragements that helped me live and grow. So with my sorry, I will also say, thank you, Naruto. The small group clapped. Tsunade walked up to the podium where Sakura gave her speech. The pink-haired girl wiped her eyes with a handkerchief as she sat back down in the row of seats. The Hokage looked out at the group, cursing at the number of people who showed up. There was the Konoha 11, their senseis, Jiraiya, Iruka, interestingly Anko, Konohamaru and his friends, Tuchi and his daughter, Ayam, and a few other villagers who acknowledged the young blonde. There were only 30 people at most. And now we commend our beloved friend to a new and peaceful life on another plane, Tsunade said. She clasped her hands together and prayed to Kami that Naruto would finally find the peace and pleasure he deserved. The others prayed along with her, each wishing Naruto a good afterlife. A pair of cerulean eyes opened to see white. White ceiling, white floor, white walls, white furniture, and white bed. Where am I? The blonde groaned. I must be at the hospital. That's the only place that seems to like making everything painfully white. The white door opened and a young woman about a year older than Naruto walked in. She wore a purple kimono that had sakura petal designs on them and old-style wooden sandals. Oh, you're awake? The girl asked, surprised. Her voice was light and airy. It made Naruto's heart practically bubble up with joy. She also seemed to have an ethereal echo as she spoke, but the blonde didn't seem to notice. Naruto was too busy gawking at her beauty. The girl had long flowing lavender-colored hair that stopped at the curve of her back. A pair of star-shaped hair clips held her hair behind her ears. She also had a darker shade of lavender as the color of her eyes. Her nose was perfect. Her eyelashes were perfect. Her lips were perfect. Everything about her face was perfect in Naruto's eyes. The blonde chanced looking at her body, and he wasn't disappointed. Her body was slim, but had curves in all the right places. Naruto also noticed through her kimono that she was well built, meaning she could probably fight. And fight well. He couldn't help but admire her shapely hips and her perfect C-cup brie. Naruto blushed and shook his head to rid of the thoughts. And no, bad Naruto, bad Naruto. Baka Ero Senin. He's rubbing off on me with his perverted ways. Are you okay? The girl asked him with a worrying look. Why yeah, I'm fine, Databeo. Naruto said sheepishly, sitting up. The girl smiled, making Naruto blush even more. That's good. I'm Sendatsu Hibana, by the way. Hibana introduced herself. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, the next Hokage, Naruto said with a small grin. Then he looked at her in slight confusion. Ne Hibana-chan, where am I? Hibana's cheeks tinged pink at his sudden affection suffixed to her name. You're in my house on Shinkai. Naruto's grin slowly faded and was replaced by a look of sheer horror. Eheed. The blonde sat in the corner of the room, rocking back and forth in a fetal position. I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. He mumbled over and over again. Hibana looked down at him. She could feel a bead of sweat going down the back of her head. Come on, Naruto, Hibana said, trying to calm him down. We need to go see my father for dinner. I'm dead. I'm dead, Naruto kept chanting. Hibana sighed. Then she put her hand on her chin and took up a thinking pose. I recall father telling me to mention ramen if he freaks out. She turned to the orange and yellow ball in the corner with a slight smirk. Well, I guess if you don't want dinner, that's too bad. We were having ramen too. Naruto's head slowly and creepily turned to look at her. Hibana swore she had heard the sound of a door creaking. The blonde had stars in his blue orbs. They stared at her with such intensity, the lavender-haired girl couldn't help but blush. Naruto grinned widely. Ramen! He shouted. The blonde grabbed her hand, ignoring her further deepening blush, and ran out of the room and down the hallway. Unfortunately, the ramen lover overlooked one important part at the end of the hallway. Stairs. A woman that looked like an older version of Hibana sat at the white table with her husband. She looked around the white kitchen of their pure white house. Where's Hai-chan? Her husband, a big, rugged-looking man with piercing green eyes, shrugged. I think she went to check on the kid. Hibana's mother nodded in understanding. Then they jumped when they heard a really loud shout of ramen came from upstairs. What's going on up there? The man asked. Suddenly 2 figures tumbled down the stairs, one screaming and the other shouting of ramen. They stopped when they reached the bottom. The 2 parents quickly rushed over to them. Upon seeing their position, Hibana's father snickered, then erupted into full-blown laughter. His wife giggled as well. Naruto was on his back, clutching Hibana's head tightly to his chest. Hibana was in turn hugging him just as tight. They looked up at the large man and blushed. Naruto gave a contented burp as he finished his 50th bowl of ramen. Sumimasen. The other 3 at the table stared in a combination of disgust and fascination. How in the hell had he eaten 50 bowls of ramen in only 15 minutes? Hibana's father shook his head to rid himself of the shock. Naruto. The man addressed the blonde. Naruto looked at him and listened. I think I should begin explaining to why you're here. At the blonde's nod, he began. Let me start with my identity. I am Kami, the king of Shinkai. Kami said. Suddenly his dark, slightly graying hair turned a bright silver and his eyes glowed until his irises and pupils weren't visible. I have watched you, Naruto. Ever since you were born, I had destined you for greatness. But then you had changed your destiny with one simple act. Do you know what that act is? Naruto nodded solemnly. Instead of going for Sasuke's chest during our fight in the Valley of the End, I went to scratch his Hittite. Correct, Kami said. Because of that tiny decision, your best friend was able to stab you through your heart. But if I did go for Sasuke's chest, I might have hurt him badly. The blonde replied, suddenly finding his feat very interesting. I will never hurt any of my friends badly, even if I die. Kami sighed. Regardless, you have died and will now live up here in Shinkai. Your good heart has earned you a place by my side. That's good and all, but, Naruto said, his voice breaking down. A few tears fell onto his feet and the floor. I've failed to live up to my Nindo. I promised to bring Sasuke back. I promised to become Hokage, but now I can't live up to those promises. I'm sorry, but I don't deserve to live here in Shinkai. I would rather go to the Yoma instead. Even Makai is better than this. Hibana had enough. She stood up, walked over to the blonde, and slapped him. Naruto looked up at her, hand on his stinging cheek. He was shocked to see her crying as well. Baka! She shouted. The girl embraced him, increasing his confusion. Why do you refuse such an offer? Because. Naruto shut his eyes as the tears began to sting. Because I cannot enjoy myself when knowing my friends back there are suffering. I can't die with such pleasantries knowing that I cause them emotional pain. Kami sighed. Well, I guess there's no other choice. You're sending him to Yoma? Hibana asked her father. She held Naruto tighter, as if not wanting to let go of him. "No," he said with an expressionless face. At that point, she snapped. "You're sending him to Makai. Father, you of all people should know that he never did and never will deserve the torture they will give Naruto if you send him there." The king of Shinkai grinned, as if he had just played the greatest prank of all time. "I never said that." His wife looked at his with a quizzical look. "Then what do you mean?" Naruto looked at Kami, waiting for an explanation. The man's hair and eyes turned back to their normal colors as he continued grinning. "I'll just have to resurrect Naruto," Kami said, reaching over to ruffle the blonde's hair. "And not only that, I'll bestow upon you the power of Shinkai's inhabitants to help you complete your promises." "What do you mean, Kami-sama?" Naruto asked. Hibana looked at him with a smile. "He means he's making you an half-angel." "Are you serious?" Naruto asked her. At her nod, he cheered. "Yada!" Suddenly the doorbell rang. Who would interrupt a touching moment like this? Kami asked before walking over to the door. As soon as he opened it, he grinned widely. "Aniki!" Another man who looked almost exactly like Kami, except dressed in red instead of white, walked into the house. He looked around and his eyes eventually landed on Naruto and the girl still embracing him. Hibana released the blonde before running over and hugging the man. "Uncle Akuma!" she giggled. The man smiled down at her. "Wow, Hibana-chan, you've grown. Soon you'll have angel boys flocking all around you," the man, now known as Akuma, the Lord of Makai, said. "So what are you doing here, Akuma-kun?" Hibana's mother asked her brother-in-law. "Well, Hoshi-chan, I'm here because of Naruto," Akuma explained. The blonde blanched. "What does the Lord of Makai want with me?" The Lord of Makai continued. "Or should I say, Naruto's tenant." "Of course." Kami laughed. "That damned QB was always causing trouble." Akuma walked over to Naruto and thrust his hand into the blonde's stomach. The young man was freaked out by that act. The man in red pulled out a little orange fox by its tail. The fox began to whimper. "Bad QB. I told you not to rampage all over the human world," Akuma scolded the fox. QB whimpered quite cutely. Naruto's sweat dropped. "That is QB? That's the almighty QB no Kitsune, most powerful of the Bijou?" Akuma smiled at Naruto. "Thank you for keeping my pet at bay. I would have rather sent my demonic army to look for him, but that would have just caused more trouble." The blonde's eyebrow twitched. QB was his pet. "As a reward, you'll get to keep about 4 taels worth of QB's chakra," he finished. "So you're basically a half-demon now." Kami pouted. "Akuma-nizan. I was going to make him a half-angel." "Oh, I'm sorry, Kami-Otuto," the older of the brothers said sheepishly. "Maybe we could try something new here." Kami thought about it for a bit, and then grinned chillishly. Naruto could find it hard to believe this was the most powerful being in the universe. "Oh, I get it!" he shouted out, slamming his fist into his palm. "What do you mean?" Hoshi asked them. "Simple, really. We're going to make Naruto a third angel, third demon, and third human," Akuma explained. Kami nodded with his big grin. Naruto sat there, slack-jawed for the rest of the day. Naruto yawned as he rose from his pure white bed. He rubbed his half-lidded eyes as he walked out of his room. The blonde opened the door to the house's ridiculously large bathroom. He wondered as he brushed his teeth. Why is the bathroom so big? I mean, the shower is as big as my entire bathroom back home. And why is there so much steam? The bathroom was filled with steam, indicating that either angels like their bathrooms steamed in the morning, or someone was taking a shower. Naruto began to pray for it to be the former. He heard the shower curtains open. A naked Hibana squeaked as she noticed a blonde figure gawking at her with a toothbrush sticking out of his mouth. The two stood there, staring at each other for a full 5 seconds, their faces resembling tomatoes. Naruto sheepishly waved his hand, toothbrush still in his mouth. Hibana waved back as her other hand slowly took a towel from the nearby rack. Naruto put the toothbrush in the sink, turned around and exited the bathroom, closing the door behind his back. The lavender-haired girl began to dry herself, her eyes never leaving the door. On the other side, Naruto was slamming his head into the wall, trying to get the image of a naked Hibana out of his mind. Bad Naruto. Bad Naruto. But her body was so perfect. I just wanna lick that. No! Bad Naruto. Bad Naruto. Naruto groaned as he smashed his face into the wall one last time. Then something else registered in his brain. Were those wings? Hoshi knew something was up as they ate breakfast. Naruto and Hibana were picking at their food with their chopsticks, occasionally glancing at each other before turning away with a light pink hue on their cheeks. Kami was too busy stuffing eggs in his mouth to notice. Naruto tapped the god on his shoulder, earning a questioning look from him. Ano, Kami-sama, you said you and Akuma-sama were going to make me part angel, right? YSHMPPHMM. Kami nodded as he continued eating. Hoshi smacked him in the head, scolding him about his manners. Hibana sighed hopelessly at her embarrassing parents. After dinner, Kami, Hibana and Naruto walked out the door to head to the capital city. Have fun blessing Naruto. Hoshi waved to them inside. We will cousin. The lavender-haired girl waved back. They walked down the endless field of white. Naruto looked around and saw nothing except for the house in the distance behind them. Where is everything? He asked. We live away from the capital city of Shinkai, Kami said. The hustle and bustle of its streets are too noisy. That's kinda weird. Aren't you Shinkai's king? Shouldn't you be living in some huge palace in the middle of the city? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. That may be, Naruto, but I like a quiet and simple life. And whatever I say goes up here, the man replied. The blonde's sweat dropped. The simple part one get, but why are you childishly loud? Naruto pulled on the sleeve of Kami's white gi. Nah, Kami-sama, how exactly are you going to make me part angel? Kami said, putting a finger on his chin. In order to make you part angel, we must infuse Ryatsu in your body while keeping your chakra intact. Ryatsu? Naruto said, furrowing his brow. Hi. Hibana explained. The blonde turned to her. Ryatsu is the angel's equivalent to human chakra. It is basically the same as chakra, except the natural color of Ryatsu is silver. Ryatsu is harder to mold, and an angel's average Ryatsu supply is half of an average human's chakra supply. But Ryatsu is really powerful, and our most minor of techniques are as powerful as B-rank jutsu in the human plane. The former Jinchuriki nodded. What about the demons equivalent to chakra and Ryatsu? Demons use yuki. An average demon's yuki supply in about twice as much as an average human's chakra supply, Hibana answered. She raised her finger in a lecture-like motion. Yuki is easier to mold and many yuki techniques don't require seals, but yuki has a downside. Use too much at a time, and you may harm yourself. Many demons in the past have killed themselves by attempting a higher-level demon technique. Even a demon's amazing regenerative abilities can't handle the power of their yuki. Naruto nodded. Thanks for explaining that to me, Hibana-chan. Your lectures aren't boring like Irika-sensei's. Arigato. The lavender-haired angel said bashfully, a small blush on her cheeks. Kami smiled at their antics. We're almost to the city, the king of Shinkai said. Naruto looked ahead as suddenly the view of large silver stone walls loomed over them. They were unbelievably high. Naruto pondered if he had enough chakra to run all the way to the top. The only break in the large walls was a single gate that looked big enough to pass a herd of elephants through. A pair of guards stood on either side of the gate. They bowed as they spotted Kami walking towards them. Praise be to Kami-sama, the guards recited in unison. The trio stopped in front of the gates. You may rise, Kami said with a tone unknown to Naruto. Now the man's voice was smothered with immense regality and wisdom. It was how the blonde would have imagined Kami's voice to sound like before he came to Shinkai. The guards stood straight and opened the gates for the group. Naruto gasped at the capital city as they walked in. It was huge. He figured that it was maybe 3 times the size of Konoha. He could barely make out the wall on the other side of the city. People walked about the large city, giving them kind nods and bows as they walked by. What do you mean that watermelon costs 50 ryo? A loud and rugged voice shouted out. The blonde turned towards the voice, recognizing it. There stood a man talking to a cowering merchant. Next to him was a young girl about Hibana's age, wearing a formal kimono. The man had baggy pants, no shirt, and a huge-ass sword on his back. Zabuza! Haku-chan! Naruto called out as he ran towards them. Hibana and her father looked him with raised eyebrows. The two turned around and their eyes widened as they recognized the boy. Naruto-kun! Haku said as she glomped the poor blonde and hugged him tightly. Hibana narrowed her eyes slightly at the ice controller. Haku-chan, I can't breathe. Naruto chuckled. The girl let go with a huge smile on her face. Well, brat, I never thought I'd see you here. The former Kirin smirked. You died way too early. What happened? Naruto's grin softened a bit. I'd rather not talk about it right now. Zabuza laughed. Well, all is well now. How's Kakashi? He's fine, Naruto said. Haku lightly tapped his shoulder. Then Naruto-kun. Why are you with Kami-sama and Hibana-sama? We're going to Makai. I'm going to be part angel and demon, Naruto answered. Part angel and part demon? Zabuza raised an eyebrow. Kid, either you're a spirit, an angel, or a demon. Haku and I are spirits. How is becoming part of each possible? The blonde shrugged. I dunno. I'm already part demon since when Akuma-sama took QB out of me, he left 4 taels worth of the fox's yuki inside of me. But before he left, Akuma-sama said that I haven't formed any yuki coils so I can't use it yet. Haku tilted her head in confusion. Then shouldn't you have an item that lets you hide your tails? Item? Naruto asked her. A demon or angel has an item that disguises their tails or wings. Hibana explained as she walked up to them. The item essentially is their tails or wings, and can turn into a piece of clothing or jewelry at any time. All angels and demons have one. Only the most powerful of us, like Tsunade or Uncle Akuma, can form and hide wings or tails without an item. Naruto looked at her with a questioning gaze. Ne Hibana-chan, do you have an item? Hibana nodded. It's my kimono. Her kimono's sash suddenly untied itself, and her kimono seemed to flow off her body and arms. It blew behind her, still attached to her shoulder blades, and in a flash of white, turned into a pair of lavender wings. She furled and unfurled them, showing off her feathery display. She had worn a white gi with holes in the back for her wings and form-fitting purple shinobi pants under her kimono. Naruto gawked as the lavender-haired girl's beauty seemed to multiply tenfold. Passerbys momentarily stopped to stare at her as well. Zabuza whistled. Damn kid, you scored a good catch. And Kami's daughter, too. Too bad Haku couldn't get to you first. All 3 teens blushed deeply. Zabuza-sama /Zabuza/Zabuza-san. Kami chuckled. Well, Zabuza-san, we must take our leave. Hibana nodded, and as quickly as her kimono turned into wings, they changed back. Naruto waved as they walked away. See you later, Zabuza, Haku-chan. Haku waved back with small smile. Haku, you need to get some guts and chase after him. The eyebrowless man deadpanned. I can't babysit you forever. You need a man in your life. The brunette closed her eyes. I have no idea what you're talking about, Zabuza-sama. The kubikiri-wielding man laughed. Hey, Hibana-chan, why don't I have tails? Naruto asked the angel. Since I'm part demon, shouldn't I have them? I have no idea, Naruto, she answered. Maybe Tsunade can tell us. They both looked up at the god. He sighed. I have no idea myself, although I have a sneaking suspicion. I'll tell you about it once we reach Iniki's mansion. Mansion? Naruto asked, his eyes narrowing in confusion. Hibana giggled. He looks cute like that. What am I thinking? Kami nodded. Although I prefer the simple life, Akuma likes to bathe in luxury. There's a portal here to Makai that will transport us directly outside his home. Naruto nodded. They stopped right outside a bar, A/N. Angels need to drink too. The bar was plain, not having anything that would attract attention. Here we are, Kami said as he entered the bar. Hibana and Naruto followed after him. The blonde looked around. A couple people were drinking on the stools, paying them no mind. The bartender looked at them and gave a nod. Kami smiled as he walked to the other end of the bar. There a painting of the inside of a red cavern was hanging. In the giant red cavern was a large mansion painted in red and black. The king of Shinkai put his hand on the painting. It suddenly started to shimmer, and his hand went through. Kami calmly walked into the painting. Hibana followed short after. The blonde shinobi stared at the painting with shock. He gingerly touched the painting. It felt tingly. He couldn't find any other word to describe it. Naruto took a step back and ran towards the painting, closing his eyes as he went through. He opened his eyes to find Kami and Hibana talking to Akuma. Behind them was the mansion in the painting. It looked even larger in person. Naruto gasped. Wow! He walked towards them. Akuma turned to Naruto. Ah, Naruto-kun! Come inside with us. I will hold your chakra coils intact with my yuki while Otoro here infuses you with Ryatsu. The blonde nodded as they entered the estate. He found himself in a living room the size of an entire floor in his apartment complex. A set of stairs was on the other end of the room, curving against the walls and leading up to the second floor. The furniture was all moved against the walls and a large seal was placed in the middle of the floor. Stand in the seal, Naruto-kun. We shall start immediately. Akuma motioned to Naruto. The blonde complied and stood in the middle of the seal. Under his short time studying under Jiraiya, Naruto had learned a little about seals. He could tell this seal under him was almost as complex as the Shiki Fujin. The seal under him was a connection of storage seals, chakra seals, pain-reducing seals, and a vast array of other kinds that he didn't know of. Please expose your back, Naruto, Kami said as he stood behind the blonde. The former Jinchuriki nodded as he took off his orange jacket and black shirt. Hibana blushed at the rippling muscles that lined his body. The god put his hands on Naruto's shoulder blades. Now brace yourself. This will hurt. Akuma put his hands on the edge of the seal. Onijutsu, Yuki Senjigajuri. Kami grunted as he poured Ryatsu into Naruto's back. Tenshijutsu, Ryatsu Megumi. A feminine figure stood atop the stairs, watching as the blonde boy cried out in pain. She smirked and licked her lips. I sighed as she juggled several bags of supplies for the stand. Ichiraku Ramen has been boring without a certain blonde around. Their business had actually grown because since the demon brat was gone, people began to come back to the stand. It deeply saddened the IM and her father that they were actually prospering because of Naruto's death. The brunette growled. Those idiots. They couldn't see a hero right in front of them. She looked up at the sky, wondering if Naruto had gotten what he had deserved for a long time. Naruto coughed as he fell flat on his face. A new pair of white wings fluttered behind him. A crimson foxtail swayed as the blonde struggled to put himself in a position where he could breathe. Congratulations, Naruto-kun, you're officially the first third angel, third demon, and soon to be third human. Akuma panted. The two brothers smiled at him in unison. He muttered a small arigato before passing out. Hibana's kimono slipped off of her and turned into wings as walked over to him and put his arm around her shoulders. She stood up, letting Naruto lean on her. I'll take him to a room, she said before flapping her wings and flying up to the second floor. Akuma grinned up at them. He looked at the other figure that was walking down the stairs. Tusan, can I help Hibachan take care of the boy? She asked. Sure thing, Ranchan, he answered. Cook and Ran smiled. Naruto, still half unconscious, slightly opened his eyes to find a lavender-eyed face staring down at him worryingly. Kirii, he whispered. Hibana blushed. She had barely heard what he said, but she still heard it. No one had ever called her that. Sure, they'd compliment on her pretty face and her great body, but not one spirit, angel, or demon had ever said that. The blonde's eyes snapped open. He looked at the lavender-haired girl, raising an eyebrow at the blush. Hibana-chan, how did the infusion go? He asked as he sat up. She smiled and pointed at his wings and tail. Look for yourself. The former Jinchuriki turned his head. He rubbed his wing and felt the softness of them. He was also shocked to see that he could feel his hand with his wing as well. Cool, the blonde simply said. Hibana giggled. Hiba-chan! A loud female voice shouted from behind the red door. The lavender-haired girl's eyes sparkled with joy. Ran-chan! She shouted back as another female burst through the doors. The two hugged each other and laughed. When they separated, the new person looked curiously at the young blonde. So you're Naruto? The girl, Ran, asked him. The blonde nodded dumbly, but he was too busy staring at her body. She was every bit as beautiful as Hibana, but in a different way. Her face held a slightly animalistic and wild look, while the angel had a calm and serene impression. She had straight navy blue hair that flowed down her back and ended at the curve of her. She had a lock of her hair tied up in a miniature pigtail that fell over the front of her face, similar to Ino's hair. Ran's eyes were a shade of dark green. The blue-haired girl wore a black scarf with the end of it going inside the back her black shinobi pants that showed off her hips. She wore a crimson tank top that showed her midriff and had a V-shaped neckline that exposed quite a bit of cleavage. To finish off the picture, she had a pair of black fingerless leather gloves. Ran bent over to get a better look of the blonde. This in turn gave Naruto a better look of her almost teacup assets. He blushed as he turned away. Ran smirked. She stood straight up, which was a couple of inches taller than Hibana, and stuck her hand out to the blonde. I'm cookin' Ran, Hiba-chan's cousin and daughter of Akuma, Lord of Makai. Naruto subdued his blush enough to look at her with a smile. He took her hand and shook it. The blonde knew that the blue-haired girl had bent over on purpose, letting him look down her shirt. Training under perverted senseis gave him a sense to when someone did something perverted on purpose or not. Time for some payback. Naruto thought with an evil chuckle in his head. Reading those perverted books of Erosenins paid off. He stood up, still holding her hand. The blonde quickly pulled Ran over to him, put his foot behind hers, and then pushed her, making her trip backwards. At the same time, Naruto slid his other arm under her to catch the fall. He put his face close to hers and gave her one of his patented foxy grins. Ran was shocked. For the first time in many, many years, she blushed. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, next Hokage, the former Jinchuriki said with a slightly seductive tone in his voice. Hibana was blushing at the mere smoothness that Naruto moved and spoke in. Inside, she was deeply jealous Naruto hadn't done that to her when she first met him. Ran laid in Naruto's arms, her eyes wide open and pink on her cheeks. Then she smirked. Looks like I got a new playmate. Naruto yawned as he walked down the large spiral staircase that led to the family room of Akuma's mansion. It had been 2 years. 2 years since Sasuke had killed him. 2 years since he first met Hibana, Ran, and their fathers, the two most powerful beings in the universe. 2 years since he became part angel and demon. 2 years since he started training to hone his skills and abilities in order to control the 2 new sets of energy coils that inhabited his body. A lot had changed between those 2 years. Hibana and Ran still looked the same due to angels and demons' much longer life expectancy, but Naruto's body was still accustomed to growing at an average human's rate. He had easily grown a foot. The blonde now stood at a towering 6 feet and 4 inches. His height wasn't the only thing that changed as well. The blonde had grown muscles all over his tanned body. He was totally ripped, although it wasn't to the point where he looked like a wall of rock-hard flesh. His face had lost a lot of its baby fat, although not all. This let Naruto retain a mature, yet boyish visage. His hair was in the same short, spiky style 2 years ago, albeit them being an inch longer. He wore a mesh undershirt like that of a certain lazy Naros, black shinobi pants and black shinobi sandals. White bandages covered the bottom half of his shins and forearms. Naruto also had a pair of black fingerless gloves that had a white spiral on the backs of the hands. This was his normal outfit, not including the items his angelic and demonic traits were hidden in. And speaking of items, Naruto had twice as many items as Hibana and Ran due to the fact that he had twice as much to hide. So his wings had become a white trench coat with red flame designs licking the bottoms, and a red stripe going down the middle and down the sleeves. On his back was the Uzumaki spiral, the kanji for vow engraved in it with golden thread. Naruto's tail had become a thin red sash that wrapped around his waist. It could be also used as a place to hold a scabbard or sheath for a sword. The halo and demonic ears had each become an earring on each of Naruto's ears. The halo hid in a diamond earring on his right ear, while the ears hid in an onyx earring in his left. Naruto left his Hittite, now with black cloth, around his neck, and a pair of goggles adorned his forehead. These goggles were very similar to the ones he used to own, except the frame was black and the lens were clear. The young blonde had been alternating between living in Akuma's mansion in Makai and Kami's house in Shinkai. During his time in the two realms, he trained with his Ryatsu and Yuki. He found them surprisingly similar to Chakra, yet different at the same time. The former Jinchuriki also met with Haku and Zabuza several times and shared what had happened since that time in Nami no Kuni. Naruto had learned that they were spirits who had done enough good deeds to be able to travel between Yoma and Shinkai. Spirits did not have any energy coils. The dead had no use for them. When Naruto asked Hibana why he, angels, and demons had energy coils, she had answered him bluntly. Angels and demons were not dead. They were very much alive. In order for a human to become an angel or demon, they had to die, become spirits, and either Kami or Akuma would transform them into angels or demons. Ran waited near the door, tapping her foot impatiently. Today was the day. Naruto was to be brought back to the human world. Although she was happy her second closest friend would finally get the second chance to accomplish his dreams, she was sad. Demons usually weren't allowed in the human world. Just take Kyuubi as an example. Kyuubi was only one demon, yet it caused so much panic and destruction. Well, Ran thought. I guess that has to do with the fact that Kyuubi is just as old as Tsunade and is stronger than most of the entire demon race combined. Yeah. The navy blue-haired demoness smirked as she reminisced of some more colorful memories that included her blonde friend. Fewer Shibaku no Jutsu. Naruto sighed in pleasure as he exited the bathroom, clad in only a towel. He shook his wings and tail to dry them and walked towards his room in Akuma's mansion, whistling a cheery tune. He rounded a corner to find his face suddenly smothered by two soft mounds. Ran looked down at the tufts of blonde hair sticking out from between her breasts, and raised an eyebrow. Naruto suddenly jerked back with a loud yelp. BWH. He blushed as he realized who the owners of the mounds were. Ran-chan. Ran smirked as she eyed him like a piece of meat. Ma, Naruto-kun. I didn't know you felt that way. Naruto shook his head so fast, his neck popped. And then no. It was an accident. I swear, Databeo. I don't feel that way about you, Ran-chan. Ran mentally grinned. She found it ridiculously entertaining to flirt with the blonde, making him trip over himself. Of course, occasionally, he would flirt back and leave her with her jaw open and blushing, but that just made it all the more fun. The green-eyed girl decided it was time to try something different. Oh. Ran looked down, her bangs covering her dark green eyes. So Naruto-kun doesn't like me. The blonde slapped his forehead so hard, he left a red mark the shape of his hand. Why must everything be so damned complicated when it involves girls? Naruto thought. He sighed in exasperation. The young shinobi angel, demon, whatever, walked up to her and did something he would have never expected. He, rather awkwardly, wrapped his arms around her and held her tight. He grinned foxily. Don't cry, Ran-chan. You're making me look like a bad guy. Ran looked up shocked. She had planned the downcast act as a joke, to try and make Naruto freak out. She didn't think Naruto would actually try to make her feel better. The young demoness blinked a few times before slowly moving her arms so that they rested on Naruto's back. She smiled and hugged him back. Naruto mentally let out a breath of relief as he patted her back. You feel better? Yeah. Ran closed her eyes. I'm feeling better, Naruto-kun. The blonde chuckled. That's good. Well, I'd better go get changed. I'm gonna learn some advanced Yuki molding today. The two let go of each other. Naruto continued whistling as he walked past Ran, towards his room. Then he noticed that it was breezier than normal. The blonde looked down to find that his towel was gone. He immediately wrapped his wings and tail around himself as a makeshift cover and turned around. The blonde found Ran smirking at him, his towel in her hand. The navy blue-haired demoness brought her hand to her mouth and blew him a kiss. She winked and dropped the towel. "See you later, Naruto-kun." The former Jinchuriki blushed heavily as the girl rounded the corner he came from and walked away. He growled as his face grew even redder. He took his towel and retreated to his room, rambling about stupid flirts all the way. "Fura Shibaka no Jutsu, Kai!" Naruto waved as he neared her. "Oheu Ran-chan." "Oheu." She waved back. The blonde smiled. "Today's the day. You excited, Ran-chan?" "Yup." Ran nodded. Then she winked. "Just remember all of my lessons and you'll be fine." "I've memorized all of the Yuki hand seals, Ran-chan. Besides, there are only 2 seals that aren't already in the chakra hand seal arsenal," Naruto said with a confident grin. The navy blue-haired girl smirked as she walked behind Naruto and draped her arms over her shoulders. "That's not exactly what I meant, Naruto-kun," she purred into his ear. "I meant those lessons regarding reproduction." The blonde shinobi blushed heavily. "I won't forget those lessons either." Ran grinned. "Good. Now hurry up. We have to go to Shinkai. Tsunade already left." "Hi." Hibana smiled as she spotted her 2 best friends in the crowd. She waved her hands high in the air to get them to notice her. Haku waved beside her. Naruto and Ran waved back and ran up to them. "Ohei Naruto-kun!" Haku exclaimed as the 2 came near. "Ohei Ran." "Ohei Haku-chan, Hibana-chan." Naruto grinned. "So let's go." Hibana nodded. "Hi. Uncle Akuma and father are already setting up the portal. Let's hurry." Just outside of Kami's humble abode, the 4 teens and Zabuza watched as the respective kings of Shinkai and Makai painted a large seal on the pure white ground Naruto had become accustomed to in heaven. The seal was large and complicated. It was easily 100 times more sophisticated than the seal that was once on the blonde's stomach. Naruto wasn't exaggerating either. The seal had so many curves, lines, and symbols, just looking at it made your brain stagger with an overload of information. Zabuza walked up to Naruto and put a hand on his shoulder. "You sure you want to go back, kid?" The young blonde nodded. "I need to. When I have kept all of the promises I have made, I shall come back." The Kubikiri-wielding man nodded silently. "Just make sure to remember those Suiton jutsu I taught you." Naruto grinned. "I will." Kami and Akuma stood up and looked at their finished work. The seal was breathtakingly complex. The king of Shikai turned to Naruto. His green eyes glowed that brilliant white and his hair became a shining silver. His GI opened and blew off his torso as if controlled by some invisible force. The GI flapped around before turning into a pair of dazzling golden wings. "It is time, Naruto, for you to return to your realm to fulfill your promises," Kami said in his royal tone, as Naruto had dubbed it. Akuma's own crimson eyes began to emanate a dark mist that covered the irises from view. His GI fell from his body, attached to his lower back instead, and became a triangle-tipped devil tail. His horns and ears grew a tad longer as his tail thickened and began to whip around. "We will need a significant amount of Ryatsu and Yuki to finish the process, so we had to reveal our traits, which as you know hold half of an angel's or demon's power," the Makai Lord explained, a dark echo shadowing his already deep voice. "Step into the middle of the seal, Naruto-kun." "Hi." Naruto agreed. He turned to his 3 female friends. "Well, I guess this will be the last time we'll see each other in a long while." Haku nodded, her eyes watering. "I understand, Naruto-kun. I'm just happy I got the chance to see you again." The former ice-controlling Kunoichi spirit walked up to Naruto and gently embraced him, much to his blushing chagrin. She rubbed her cheek against his chest. He was way taller than her now. Haku reluctantly let go as she felt a nudge of killing intent from one of the other girls. She wasn't sure who sent that killing intent though. Ran smirked as she held a hand out to Naruto. "So we'll see you later, right, Naruto-kun?" "Right, Ran-chan," Naruto said with a little smirk of his own. He took her hand and shook it. By the way, I haven't done this in a long time. The blonde once again pulled the demoness over to him and tipped her. He brought his face close to hers again and stared deep into the navy blue-haired girl's eyes. A light pink hue appeared on both of their cheeks. This seems familiar. Ran giggled. She unexpectedly gave the blonde a peck on his nose. Except we're saying goodbye except for hello. Naruto blushed a bit deeper as he let Ran stand straight up. He turned to the last but not least, Hibana. The lavender-haired angel smiled sadly at him. I hope you finish fulfilling your dreams soon. Hibana smiled softly. So you can come back. He grinned his patented foxy grin. I will, Hibana-chan. For you, Ran-chan and Haku-chan's sake, I'll come back as soon as possible, to Bayo. Hibana bit her lip nervously as she approached the blonde. She wrapped her arms around him and held him close, much like he did to her after the stairs incident. Naruto rested his hands on the curve of her back and let her hold him. What he didn't know, however, was that a thread from his mesh undershirt got caught on one of Hibana's star-shaped hair clips. The two separated, still unknowing of the little thread. The other two female teens took each of Hibana's hands and watched as their other friend prepared to become something totally new. Naruto walked to the middle of the seal and concentrated his chakra, Ryatsu and Yuki. He held them in check, one single spike of any of the energies into the seal below him and kablowy. Half of Shinkai will be gone. Kami and Akuma set their hands on the seal's edges as it glowed an ominous blood red. Tenchi/Onijutsu, Kukudo Jutsu. The two kings shouted out, their respective energies flowing into the seal, tracing its lines to the very point. Naruto held his breath as he felt a light tingly feeling in his chest. A bright light shined throughout the area. A normal human could have easily been blinded by it. Kami and Akuma panted as their wings and tails reverted back into the GIs they were wearing. Zabuza watched them with slight boredom in his eyes. Kami looked around to find something peculiar. Where's the kids? Iruka and Anko stood next to Naruto's grave, holding each other closely. They looked into the other's eyes, noting how bloodshot and swollen they were. Heh, were you crying, Iruka? The snake woman asked with a sad chuckle, a lone tear escaping her ducts. The scar-nosed man wiped her tear off with a finger. I wasn't the only one. They began to lean in close. Their lips were an inch apart when I come back from the dead and first thing I see is my brother figure about to make out with a psychotic snake lady. A teenage voice sounded out. The two adults quickly sprang apart from each other with a loud and surprised yelp. They looked down at Naruto's grave to find a huge hole in the ground. Inside the hole were four very peeved and pissed teens. One of them looked familiar. Hey, look, brat, we can explain. Anko stammered, blushing profusely. Forget that. How in the hell are you alive, Naruto? Iruka screamed, unconsciously activating the Kyohitsu no Jutsu. Sheesh, Iruka-sensei, you've gotten louder, the blonde said with a small smile. Ayam's eyes refused to blink. They would not close, no matter how much they hurt from dryness. She could not believe it. Her mind was in lockdown as she read the letter one of her friends sent her. Something that had long gone some time ago had come back, apparently. That something turns out to be very, very important to Ayam. The ramen girl thought she would never receive the chance to see it again. She had thought it left her that one fateful night 2 years ago. The store, Victoria no Himitsu, was having a 50% off on designer bras. The brunette shrieked with joy as she ran straight to the establishment, purse in hand. Iruka, Anko, and the three unknown girls watched as Naruto consumed over 30 cups of instant ramen. All four females were disgusted. Disgusted to a point beyond mention. The blonde teen's ravenous appetite was something one expected to find in the interrogation room of Konoha's torture division rather than in Iruka's kitchen. The scarred teacher, however, was completely calm. He had seen this plenty of times before and was used to it. He sighed as he looked into his empty wallet. Iruka swore he saw his wallet come to life and cough from dehydration. His eyebrow twitched. He had literally bought the grocery store dry of ramen-based foods. I knew I'd have to dig into my ANBU duty savings soon with Naruto around. The thought stopped as a new one took its place. Iruka tapped the ramen addict on the shoulder. Naruto looked up at him, pausing momentarily from eating. Naruto, now will you explain to us how exactly you're alive? He asked politely. The blonde swallowed the noodles in his mouth before scowling. Only if you tell me why you and the psycho lady were getting freaky in a cemetery. Anko chuckled sheepishly as Iruka blushed redder than a spanked Hannah Montana. Who's Hannah Montana? Iruka shook his head of the random thought and sighed in frustration. He gave Naruto a glare. That's not important. Naruto rubbed his chin in thought. I would have never thought Iruka-sensei had a fetish for snakes and fantasies of necrophilia. The teacher smashed his fist onto the top of his former student's head. Shut up and answer the question. Itachi! The blonde yelled in pain. He pouted as he rubbed his head. Fine, but you might not believe me. Iruka gave him a blank stare. Naruto, you know that I hold the utmost trust in you. You can tell me anything, no matter how absurd, and I will go with your word. Naruto nodded. Of course, Iruka-sensei. Well, Kami-sama and Akuma-sama, who are actually brothers, thought it wasn't my time to die yet and decided to make me third demon, third angel, and third human so that I could fulfill my promises. Then I spent the next 2 years training with my new energy sources. But when they were trying to send me back to the human plane, something messed up and those three. He pointed briefly at the 3 girls. Came with me. They are Hibana-chan, Ran-chan, and Haku-chan. Hibana-chan is the one with lavender hair and eyes. She's an angel and is Kami-sama's daughter. Ran-chan is the one with green eyes and navy blue hair. She's a demon and is Akuma-sama's daughter. Haku-chan is the brunette in a formal kimono. She used to be a Kiri-nuke-nin but is now a spirit. They're my friends. Anko scoffed. Iruka-kun, you can't possibly believe that load of shit. The man looked at her with an even stare before looking at his little brother, who wasn't so little anymore. He put a hand on Naruto's shoulder. I believe you, Naruto Otsuto. The purple-haired snake woman gasped. You can't be serious. Kami and Akuma being brothers. Half-angel/demon/human. That's too unreal to be true. Nothing is too unreal for my little brother. Iruka smiled at her before grabbing Naruto in a quick headlock. He began to relentlessly noogie him into submission. Stop that, Iruka-sensei. It's annoying, Naruto said through laughs. Anko smiled at the scene playing out in front of her, even though she was peeved that Chunin had picked Naruto's words over her. Hibana found it quite cute that Naruto was getting teased like this. Ran and Haku also thought it was nice that Naruto had someone who cared for him. Iruka and Naruto had wide, toothy grins on each of their faces. So Iruka-sensei, what were you and Anko-san doing in the cemetery? One of the grins disappeared. Shizune whistled as she signed papers on her desk. Who knew being the secretary of a Hokage was so much work as well? But she grew used to it, unlike her gambling-obsessed sensei. The medic Nin heard the door to the office open and close. She looked up to see who came in. Her pen clattered on the floor. A young man waved cheerily to her. He was standing with Iruka, Anko, and 3 other people she didn't know. She studied the man's every feature. Blonde hair, tan skin, cerulean blue eyes, 3 whisker marks on each cheek. Yup. Either I'm hallucinating or Naruto's back from the dead. What's up, Shizune-nichan? Long time no see. The supposed Naruto exclaimed, a familiar foxy grin on his face. It can't be. In an instant, the medic Nin was upon the group of people, pointing at Naruto's chest. Only one way to be sure. What are you doing, Ne-chan? Naruto scratched his head in confusion. The others were confused as well. The dark-haired Kunoichi moved her finger forward and poked a seemingly random spot on the blonde's chest. Naruto immediately broke into a fit of giggles. That tickled, Databeo. Naruto was promptly tackled by his big sister figure. Iruka's eyebrow went up. I thought only I knew Naruto's secret ticklish spot. He thought. Shizune and Naruto caught up as the blonde explained his return from the dead. The Hokage aspirer asked his Ne-chan if he could see Tsunade. Shizune nodded and led them to the Hokage's office, where she knocked on the door. There was no answer. The black-haired medic knocked louder. The Konohanin exchanged knowing looks. Hibana, Ran, and Haku were still confused. Shizune opened the door, and they all entered the room. Tsunade slept quietly as her head was buried in a mountain of paperwork. 7 people watched her with sweat drops going down their heads. Shizune's eye twitched. Tsunade-sensei. Naruto sighed. I see Bachan hasn't changed. Everyone except the blonde ducked as a table flew through the room. It slammed Naruto into the wall. His rear end was stuck in a hole in the wall. No one calls me that except. Tsunade roared. She paused as she looked at the young man. Naruto? Naruto groaned from the pain. Damn it, Bachan. How will I become Hokage if you break all my bones? Is that really you? The Gondai asked quietly. From his spot on the wall, Naruto grinned. In the flesh! He shouted. Suddenly he felt something poke his butt from the other side of the wall. The door opened. Unfortunately, Naruto was right next to the doorway and the door hit his face with a loud smack. Tsunade-sensei! There's a white thing poking out from the wall outside your office. An unknowing Sakura said urgently. It felt warm and soft, like human flesh. I think you should check it out. She noticed 2 other people she knew, 2 people she didn't know, and 1 person who she was damn sure was dead. Sakura stared at Haku. The ice manipulator smiled sheepishly and waved. How are you, Sakura-san? Haku asked. Sakura blinked. I'm fine. How are you, Haku-san? I'm good. The spirit answered. There was an awkward silence. Ano. Yes, Sakura-san? How are you alive? I could answer that. A muffled and pained voice said from behind the door. Sakura raised a pink eyebrow and closed the door, revealing a smiling Naruto. Konnichiwa, Sakura-chan. Naruto. She breathed. Her eyes were wide and her heart had stopped. Is that you? Like I said to Bachan a few seconds ago, in the flesh. He chuckled. But how? Well, Naruto proceeded to tell them the story he told Irika and Anko, albeit more slightly detailed. Itachi and Kisame walked silently down the halls of the Akatsuki lair. Their black cloaks barely touched the ground as they seemingly glided down the passageway. The Samahata's tips scratched the ceiling as the Kiri-nuke-nin adjusted its position on his shoulders. Itachi, Kisame said. HN. The Uchiha trader grunted. What do you think we're having for lunch today? The shark man asked. Apparently, the 2 Akatsuki members were on their way to the lair's cafeteria. HN, Itachi answered. Geez. All you do is grunt. Kisame shook his head. Answer my question. The Bishinin man sighed. I don't know. And I don't care as long as they have Pocky. Kisame smiled. I think it's deli meat day. I'm up for a roast beef with mustard on wheat. How about you? HN. Itachi, if you say HN one more time, I swear I will burn your Ika books. I like ham and turkey on rye, with Pocky. The rest of the Konoha 11 were called over via messenger hawk. They were told the same story. Needless to say, they were shocked by Naruto's return and his transformation into a part angel/demon. Hinata fainted. Shino and Niji showed a rare display of happiness. Kiba and Chuji were ecstatic. Tenten and Ino gave him a big hug, much to Hibana and Ran's chagrin. Hinata fainted again. Lee bombarded Naruto with youthful challenges of youth. Shikamaru was eyeing Ran for some reason. And Hinata fainted, again. Show us your youthfulness, Naruto-kun. Let's spar. Our score was tied 14-14 when you left. I want to know who is more youthful, me, the green beast of Konoha, or you, the immortal Maelstrom. Lee shouted, tears of happiness going down his cheeks. Hibana, Ran, and Haku were trying their best to get away from the spandex-wearing shinobi without exiting the room. Naruto chuckled. Why not? The group traveled to Team 7's old training field. Naruto stood on top of the pole he was tied to 2 years ago. This brings back a lot of memories, he said with a nostalgic look on his face. Sakura smiled as the memories of happy times when Team 7 was still a team came back to her mind. Yosh! Let's go, Naruto-kun, Lee said, jumping excitedly from one foot to the other. The blonde waved his hand. Calm down, Lee. No need to rush things. Mysterious flames burned in Lee's eyes. So hip. You truly are Kakashi's student. As Gai-sensei's student, I will redeem his youthful honor by defeating you in this spar, Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled. Lee got annoying sometimes, but he was glad to see his friend again. He jumped down from the pole and stretched. Tsunade ushered everyone except the two geniuses of hard work into the woods surrounding the field. Hibana and Ran jumped into a tree to get a better view. Haku tried to grab a branch and swing herself up to a tree, but her hand wouldn't seem to grab hold of it. Eventually she gave up and settled from sitting at its base. Lee got into the Goken stance, legs straight and together but poised to jump, right hand out front and open, palm facing up, left hand behind his back. Naruto assumed a stance Lee was not familiar with. He put his right foot forwards, left foot in a right angle a foot behind it, his knees bent slightly, his arms crossed in front of him, and his hands hanging limply from the arms. The stance was very relaxed, but upon closer look, Naruto's muscles were slowly tensing. In the tree, Hibana smiled. Naruto had just assumed the basic Hinken stance. The angelic bookworm recited quietly in her head. Hinken, feather fist. The Hinken style is widely regarded throughout Shinkai, Makai and Yomi for its peculiar strikes. A fighter using this style takes advantage of various feints, unpredictability, and the power of a palm strike to overpower his or her foes. The fist is never used in Hinken. Blocking is also rare. Most strikes against the Hinken are either parried or dodged, and are closely followed by counter-strike. The most used body parts in the Hinken are the elbows, palms, knees, shins, and fingers. Rand gave Hibana a blank stare. Hibachan, are you reciting text in your head again? Hibana blushed and chuckled sheepishly. Of course not. Lee raised his bushy eyebrow. I am not familiar with your stance, Naruto-kun. What style are you using? The blonde gave a feral smile, his large canines showing. This is one of the things I learned from Shinkai. It's called the Hinken. The bull-haired shinobi nodded. Ready to begin, my youthful rival? Ready as ever, bushy brows. Naruto replied, using Lee's old nickname. In an instant, Lee disappeared in a green blur. The blonde followed the blur with his eyes until it got within a few feet. He jumped to the left, barely dodging a spinning roundhouse from Lee. Naruto recovered and shot forward, trying to hit Lee with a palm strike to his chest. The older shinobi used his faster speed to grab the blonde's wrist. He threw a punch at Naruto's throat. Naruto brought his other hand and diverted the strike over his head. The hand entrapped in Lee's grip grabbed Lee's own wrist in order to keep him from escaping. Naruto knew Lee's greatest strength was his speed. If he could keep Lee from moving around, then he could end the fight much quicker. A knee flew up and tried to hit the spandex-wearing teen in the face. Lee swung his head backwards as the knee grazed his nose. With surprising flexibility, Naruto brought the raised leg over his head and brought the sole of his sandal onto Lee's chest. It hit him in the solar plexus and stunned him temporarily. Naruto took this moment and used it to his advantage. He uppercut with an open hand. His palm slammed into Lee's chin, making him fly up in the air, Naruto's grip on his hand broken by the sheer force of the strike. Lee flipped in midair and landed on his feet. He spat a little blood onto the ground before he disappeared yet again in a green blur. This time, Naruto was slow to reacting and received a foot to his stomach. Lee followed up the offensive with a low sweeping kick. Naruto jumped in time and front-flipped. He tried to bring his heel down onto Lee's head, but the quicker taijutsu expert did something unexpected. He continued with his sweeping kick, and when it made a complete circle, Lee brought his leg up and got Naruto in the ribs. The momentum hit Naruto like a speeding train. The blonde flew several feet away before landing roughly on his back. He grunted as he stood back up, getting back in the Hinken stance. Lee ran forward and jumped. He spun in mid-air and shouted a battle cry. Konoha Senpu! Naruto smiled as a foot neared his head. He clasped his hands together and formed a tiger seal. The blonde ducked under the spinning kick, slid behind the mid-air shinobi and shouted out a technique of his own. Konoha Haiden Taijutsu no Ugi, Senin Garoshi. The audience's reaction to the following event was mixed. Sakura's eyes bugged out as she forced down the contents of her stomach from escaping. Hinata fainted from thoughts of Naruto using the technique on her. Shino and Niji showed another rare emotion of disgust. Shikamaru kept on staring at Ran for some reason. Ino and Kiba actually did puke. Tenten and Chuji gave long drawled-out yos. Tsunade, Shizune and Irika sighed as it became apparent of how much Kakashi influenced the blonde. Hibana was shocked that Naruto was using such a disgraceful technique. Last but not least, Ran and Anko were laughing their asses off. Lee fell to the ground, clutching his butt in pain. And Naruto-kun. That was most unyouthful. Hibana stood from her spot in the tree and began pointing at Naruto. Her face was red from embarrassment, and she was shaking from anger. How could you use such an unhealthy technique, Naruto? The blonde smiled back. Simple. I'm Konoha's #1 most surprising ninja, and the next Hokage, Databeo. Itachi grunted as he bit down on his ham and turkey on wheat. The Akatsuki cafeteria was served by Zetsu, who supplied the various meats for the deli bar. Various chairs and tables were also strewn about, forming a somewhat restaurant-like dining area. Kisame grinned toothily as he ripped into his own sandwich. Nearby, Conan and Pain talked with each other about taking over the world and such while eating identical ham and cheeses on white. Itachi glanced at them before grunting again. Pain-sama, he called out, not looking away from his sandwich. The spiky-haired Akatsuki leader turned to him. What is it, Itachi? We need to resupply the Pocky vending machine, the uchiha answered. Pain nodded, although a slight shiver went down his spine. Refusing Itachi his Pocky was like refusing the sun its fuel. They would blow up in an explosive fury and destroy everything around them in a moment's notice. Conan turned to an apron-wearing Zetsu, who stood next to the deli bar. Hey Zetsu. Where'd you get this meat? It's pretty good. You know that one new guy from IWA, the one who wanted to join us? Zetsu's two sides answered. Yeah. I got it from him. So you bought it from him? Sure, let's go with that. Extra Chapter 1, Hibana's Textbook, Part 1. Hibana let out a contented sigh as she lay on her soft bed in Shinkai. The angel girl reached under her bed and took out a rather large, 1 foot thick, textbook. She hefted it with unbelievable strength and rested it on her lap. The lavender-haired teen skimmed through random pages and wondered. Now where did I leave off? Ah, there we go. Basic Tenshijutsu. Tenshijutsu. Summary: Tenshijutsu, powered by Ryatsu, can be extremely powerful. Although lacking the raw destructive ability of Yuki or the manipulative potential of chakra, it excels in the fact that it can be gathered in a relatively small point in order to progressively gather power. Angels and other similar beings of Shinkai have the ability to focus their Ryatsu into, for example, a thin beam that can cut through objects that not even the most volatile Yuki can pierce. Ryatsu is also a powerful binding and regenerative catalyst. The most basic of medical Tenshijutsu can regenerate entire limbs with enough control, and the more advanced have been recorded to bring mortals back from the dead. Here are some examples of common Tenshijutsu. D-rank Tenshijutsu. Teppu Ray, gunshot ray, fires a thin beam of Ryatsu from the point of the user's finger. The Ryatsu concentration is dense enough to cut and burn shallowly into flesh, but cannot pierce leather or metal armor. Semi-no Tate, shield of absorption, surrounds target part of body in a thin layer of Ryatsu. This absorbs the majority of any force striking the shield, softening any blow the user takes. Jutsu requires continuous concentration in order to maintain shield. Higher-level angels have the ability to activate the shield passively and without hand seals, forming a makeshift irremovable armor that can only be broken through use of a powerful piercing force. Homen Tsubasa, release wings. Every angel, regardless of rank, power, or status, can use this technique. It does not require hand seals due to the fact it is a natural occurring ability for angels to be able to summon and seal away their wings in a moment's notice. This ability does not use any Ryatsu. An angel that releases their wings also receive a substantial power boost due to the sealing of Ryatsu inside their item. However, if this extra power source is used for long periods of time, the angel will start to eat away at their own Ryatsu coils, which is the reason items were created. C-Rank Tenshijutsu. Ninsho Ray, Burning Ray, a more powerful version of Bachi no Ray that is fired from the palm of the hand. This Tenshijutsu can burn a large area of flesh, causing severe pain to the target. It is also able to light any flammable object easily with its more powerful heat. Exposed visual contact to this technique can also cause blindness. Hikari no Kei, Light Whip, condenses Ryatsu into a thin wire-like substance that acts like a super hot whip that can slice easily through thin metal. This technique can also be used to grapple large objects and act as a rope for swinging. Hai-chan! Ran exclaimed with joy as she slammed the door to Hibana's room down. Naruto-kun wants to play tag again. Hibana looked up at her room's doorway to find a grinning Ran dragging a pouting Naruto by the back of his trench coat collar. No, I didn't, the blonde denied. Ran smiled a dark smile that only demons could achieve. But I want to. Naruto couldn't suppress the shiver racing up and down his spine. Okay. Hibana sighed hopelessly at her friend's antics. Kami and Hoshi were startled as several shouts and loud banging noises came from upstairs. Ha! You're it! Damn it, Ranchan, did you have to slam my head into the door? Yes, I did. Hai-chan, let's get away before he gets his head out of the wood. Rayan! The two adults knowingly shook their heads and continued on their business. Chapter end. So how was the story? I hope you like it. Share this story with your friends and comment down if you want more stories like this. I will meet you in the next video. Sayonara.